Good. Hey, how's it going? My name is Jesse Stone. I am a mortgage agent with Bricks Mortgage.
And I'm Brandon Singh, real estate broker here in the Durham region. Let's go.
All right, buddy. So, what a crazy year.
Yeah, interesting year to say the least.
Definitely.
2023 definitely had some challenges.
Yeah.
Interest rates were high, sales volume was low. We definitely saw a lot of, pent up demand in terms of people that maybe didn't buy or sell in the last year, maybe 2022 and 2023, which leads me to believe that 2024 will likely start seeing some more activity in the market. Are you seeing
I
the
agree.
same
Yeah,
on
no,
your
definitely.
side?
Like, I have a lot of first-time home buyers that are kind of coming out of the shadows, and
Yeah.
I always like to say, like, it's January 2024 right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have conversations during Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Around
investments,
family,
like,
yeah.
the whole crypto thing that happened as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when these conversations happen, I always expect, the following couple of weeks to get a little more activity. But I want to
Right.
say, our last couple of years, like these last couple of weeks have been absolutely crazy. I want to say there's some more buyer confidence coming in. They're starting to realize, like, hey,
Yeah.
are we at the peak of rates?
Yeah.
Obviously, what's happened with the interest rates.
But
Like,
it's interesting that you say that about the peak of rates because I personally think we are.
Yeah.
I don't. Do you feel the same way?
I mean, if I hate using this expression, if I had the crystal ball, like everybody says that, right? If I had a
Yeah.
time machine, I'm gonna say
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah.
I would love to have the expectation to say yes, for sure, they're coming
The
down.
reason why I asked that is
Yeah.
that because if you remember, sort of this time last year, we saw something very similar happen where we saw some,
Yeah.
consecutive pauses from the Bank of Canada.
For sure.
And then I think it was around February or so. January was really slow, and
Yeah.
then February, I remember had
February,
a
March,
listing.
April. Yeah, I did a 1 year renewal, and I was like, wow,
I had
these rates
no
are good.
idea, and
Yeah.
the open
Boom,
house was
right up.
crazy busy, and there was just buyers were boom, 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 boom. It was going
Yeah.
right, and then that tapered off, right?
Of course.
So I think
And interest rates spiked back up.
and interest rates did
Yeah, we
did
had
go up right
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that.
We had a few more increases.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that do you think that this is like kind of like that?
Yeah, well, based
we're at
off
the end of the
inflation,
road?
like, we can only use our trackers. And I mean, if anybody
Yeah.
is listening to this and they want to come back and say, hey, you were wrong,
You're wrong.
by all means, right? I
Yeah.
can only go off maybe a month-to-month basis, 2 months basis, right?
Totally.
We can only track inflation by so much. And of course, the Bank of Canada, like what happened in 2022 was absolutely insane. Like,
Right.
the lending rate that they had during COVID prior to that as
Basically
well.
free, right?
0.25% was it. They didn't change that for 2 years. It was
Yeah.
free money. People are getting fixed rates at 1.6, 1.7. And to raise the policy rate, the lending rate, in
That
4% in
Yeah.
1 year, that is insane, right? And that's where
Yeah.
you have all these borrowers on a variable mortgage, just absolutely going crazy, right?
Over-leveraged.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So the biggest thing with that, the government has implemented like the mortgage charter.
Right.
With the mortgage charter, some of it's a little bit of fluff, but they are allowing insured mortgages not to actually go under the stress test.
Right.
So it's helping people with payments, but what about everybody else, right? What are
Right,
people that
right.
have put 20% down because
Yeah, those people aren't included.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
they're still being on a variable. They could be, still facing those hard payments, right?
Right.
And like, some of the fluff, like I said, I think the government is just kind of backpedaling a little bit, trying to get some votes because this should have been dealt with, during the crisis.
It seems
right?
like the help is kind of coming a little.
Yeah.
too late
And one thing I
after,
want
right?
to comment on too, like it's funny because they did say, they want banks to now start reaching out 6 months prior to renewal, right? Because we have this thing called
But this is like an
payment shock.
ask, right? This
Yeah,
is not like a
nothing,
pay
nothing,
mandatory.
Exactly,
Okay,
right.
okay.
And the problem with that is like if you truly care about your clients, for me, like
Mm-hmm.
I had clients on variables, but based off their choice, I follow up with every single rate announcement. Hey, this is your payment.
Really?
Expect this increase.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Because it's
And this
like
is by phone.
and this is by phone, this is by
Right.
email, so they can reference it. And you do have options in a variable, right? You could
Mm-hmm.
always lock into a fixed, but we do have borrowers that didn't get that service,
Right.
either from their bank or their other agent, whomever. And we're two years in, and they're
Yeah.
like, this is unaffordable. But when
Right.
rates were a little lower, they had the option to actually
Right.
lock into a fix and have some lower rates, right?
It's funny that you say that about like reaching out 6 months in advance because from my personal experience, if you're with a big bank, you just get a letter in the mail.
That's it, that's
right?
it.
And it's like, hey, call this number, push one for this, and two
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that,
and it's very
kinda
simple,
done,
right? Like, and we can actually start securing rate holds 120 days prior to maturity
so
date.
4 months before.
Yeah, and I always
Okay.
tell my clients it's always great to like obviously I'm going to contact you, but
Mm-hmm.
let's start the process at 6 months. Let's see where you're at. Maybe something's on
Right.
your credit that we need to clear up, or fraud, or
okay.
whatever, right? Let's
So when you do the renewal, is that when
Yeah.
they'll check those credentials again? Like
Yeah,
things like if
yeah,
it's with the same lender
yeah, you're
still too.
exactly right. So
Okay.
like if you're if you have a mortgage right now with your lender and you make your payments, it's a very simple process to renew, right? You just
Like
literally.
you're not in default, you haven't late, you
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
missed
make sure
anything.
exactly. They
That's
have no
all. Okay.
reason to look deep again, right? So it's literally just a phone call. You can do a verbal agreement
Okay.
or sign an e-sign over an email, right? So
Right.
banks know this, and when you actually get a renewal offer,
Yeah.
typically they are higher because they know it's a lot more convenient for the borrower just to sign, right?
Right. I've
Imagine,
noticed that.
right?
I've
Yeah,
had clients call me and say, "Hey, Brandon, we just got this in the mail. What do you
yeah,
think?" And I'm, having conversations with people like you, and and
yep.
you're kind of like, "Hey, that doesn't really align with where the market is,
Of
right?"
course, of course. And they want you to negotiate, and
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
job, right?
And they kind of put the pressure a little bit to be like,
Yeah,
"Hey, respond by this date to lock in this," and it's
exactly,
like it leaves
exactly.
that taste in their mouth. It's like, "Oh, well, things might get worse. Let's just sign it and
Yeah,
take it,"
and
right?
like when I work with my clients, right, I'm like, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
talk to your bank. What's your renewal offer, right? And
Hmm.
especially right now, we're in like a more downward market, right? For interest rates,
As
right?
far as fixed rates go.
As far as fixed rates,
Okay.
not for the policy rate. That's
Yeah.
January 24th is the next
The
one
next one.
from the time we've done this, right?
Right, right.
But for fixed rates over the last say 8 weeks, like they've dropped down almost 1%, like
Wow, a full point.
depending, yeah, especially on the
Yeah.
5-year fixed.
Okay.
So these lenders they know that their borrowers are less to kind of shop around.
Okay.
At the time of the renewal, as well as negotiate, right? They could be thinking, "Wow, I just transitioned my job. Like maybe I
So do
shouldn't."
do borrowers have the ability to kind of negotiate? Like
For
if they
sure.
get the paper and it says, I don't know, 6%,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
hypothetically, they can just call up and say, hey,
You can do better.
TD, Scotia, whoever this may
Yeah,
be, and kind of have that dialogue with them
definitely.
to
What
reduce
what
that.
else can you do? What else can you
Right.
do? Right, and that's
Yeah.
where I kind of come in. I take their rate. Sometimes I can even negotiate. Prep them on negotiating. Like
Right.
let's say they've done a big transition in their career, and I can actually use their income to qualify. So I can actually bring them to a new lender because it's just like getting your first mortgage. You have to
Right. The
requalify.
whole
I need
application
all exactly,
process.
but it's a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
better because there's no down payment summary. I don't have to track all the money you've involved because you already own the property, of course.
Okay.
But I'll actually prep them and say, hey, move forward. This is what you should be saying.
Yeah.
Because I actually cannot bring them to another lender, right? I'm always trying to look
Yeah.
out for them,
Yeah.
especially with clients. B lending has become very common, especially during the whole COVID thing.
Hmm.
People want to get applied for more in different positions. So especially with B lending, depending on the lender, I can actually negotiate your rate on your behalf
Right.
with that lender. I just need a client consent form. So
The B lending part that I do want to touch on really quickly
for sure.
too is when the interest rates were really low
Hmm.
and there were certain individuals that couldn't qualify on the A side, that's a lot of business owners, self-employed. We
Yeah,
kind of see
definitely.
that, and it's not necessarily that maybe they didn't meet some of the criteria that they needed to.
Yeah.
Very qualified people, but still not quite on the A side, that took B or even private mortgages,
Hmm.
and were of a mindset of the market's here and it's going up every day, every day, every day. I'll buy it now and I'll take a short term private or B,
Yeah.
and then refinance to the A side.
Yep. Yep.
I've seen a lot of scenarios which are very sad where these people are like, okay, we're looking to renew now.
Hmm.
They don't qualify on the A side still, and they're renewing either private or B.
Yeah.
And as well as I, those rates have changed dramatically since
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
right?
No, definitely.
Pushing payments, some, I've heard some even like $8,000, $10,000, depending on the mortgage size, right?
No, definitely.
And then they're also in a position where they can't really offload those properties because the value's just not there, right?
Hmm.
I would,
It's kind of on both sides, right? Like you have a higher
yeah,
interest
it's
rate
like
and the value's not there as
you
well.
can
Their
only
business took a hit, and
that's
it's like
it.
it's like a trifecta.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
So I think the last time we saw something like this, you'll probably remember it was 2017. We
Hmm.
had that very strong market where a lot of people were moving, a lot of people were investing, doing X, Y, and Z,
Hmm.
and for many years, the next time when they would be able to sell that property and finally make a profit on it or break even
Hmm.
was 2022, right? So
Yeah.
if they
Like
bought
5
something.
years out. Yeah,
Exactly,
the
right?
correction, quote
So
unquote.
it's a bit of a weird time, for people that are in those situations, and I feel really bad because I've personally met with sellers that want to make a move for whether it's affordability reasons or upsize or
Yeah.
whatever, and we're kind of looking at it, and I'm going, well, you guys bought any time between 2020 and maybe 21, 22,
Hmm.
and most likely it was like a very high price, right?
Yeah.
Um,
They're stuck
they're
basically.
kind of stuck,
Yeah,
right?
and especially add a variable rate onto that too. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
terrible.
tough. I
It's
mean, like you
terrible.
said, it's on both sides of the coin, right?
Yeah.
So, I think it'll be really interesting to see what 2024 brings,
Hmm.
as far as that goes, because even right now we're seeing sales activity kind of already start to come back,
Yeah.
especially in
I've seen it.
some.
I've seen it on my side
Yeah,
with first time
exactly.
home buyers. Yeah.
Especially in first time home buyers, I think that lower price segment is definitely going to see more activity. They are
Mhm.
seeing it now, and I think that'll continue for majority of the year. If I had to make a guess,
Yeah.
last year it's weird because when the market was sort of slow or stale, you could say these people weren't in the market. They
Hmm.
were just like, oh, well, wait, we'll
We'll
wait.
wait.
And
Yeah.
now it's kind of like, okay, well, where's the bottom here, or where's that ultimate time to buy? Do you feel like your clients are
It's
kind of
yeah,
waiting for
and
that?
that's the tricky part, right? Like it's you can't time anything. It's like that one saying, time in the market's better than time in
That's
the
right.
market, right? Obviously, the last couple of years that was not true because timing in the market there was
If you bought on Monday, you could sell on Friday,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Like, I always kind of bring through, the equity and the principal payment with my clients as
right,
being like, if you own this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, this is where you can actually see your investment grow, right?
right.
And what happened in COVID, like people literally, like you said, purchased on Monday, waited 6 months, and their property value went up 30%, right? Some
Yeah,
offloaded, some didn't, and then the
yeah,
correction came. But yeah, to answer your question directly, like I feel, there's a lot more buyer confidence.
right.
They always say people talk around Christmas and Thanksgiving and X, Y, Z
Yeah.
investments. So people talk, and that's where you get the trust, and
I think
they're
this sentiment
and
is changing a little bit.
yeah, right. So like,
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I've had a lot of first time home buyers kind of come out of the shadows. They're now starting
Okay.
to make moves.
So these were people that were previously looking, took a pause, and now they're
Yeah,
coming
maybe they
back.
didn't get approved for as much as they should have.
Okay.
They considered, 5-year fixed, insured, which is like the
Okay.
typical, Canadians love, I guess, to be nice and to have a
Right.
nice payment,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So that 5-year fix now it's starting to come down on the insured side, like
Right.
less than 5%. So
Wow.
I think,
Okay.
right now I'm seeing around, 4.5, 4.6, right? So I
Okay.
feel like that stigma of, wow, it's a high rate is now starting to come down.
Fade away a little bit.
Yeah, and of course the pricing, right? They see these homes that are listed. I mean, you see it better than I do,
Yeah.
right?
Of
Like
course.
they're listed for so long, and they're like, maybe we can get a deal, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not competing, and like,
I'm glad that you brought that up because one thing that we did notice as well
mhm,
is that a lot of this sort of stale inventory that's been on the market, 20, 30, 40, 50 days plus that was sitting on the market last year, we're noticing that they're getting sold
yeah,
now in the month of January,
yeah,
in the first few days leading up to, into January. And it's like, where were those people before, right? It's
yeah,
like the sentiment changes, a new year, people have new goals, whether that's upsizing, downsizing,
hmm,
getting into the market, but we're seeing those properties sell. And even some of the ones that have been on the market for quite some time are actually selling in multiples.
yeah, wow,
Now, and when I say multiples, it doesn't necessarily mean that the price is going to be dramatically over the list price. It
hmm,
just means that there's more than one interested party in that specific home at that given moment, which
hmm,
is very interesting to see considering it may have been on the market for 30, 40 days before and, nothing was happening, right?
yeah. And I mean, in your experience, like you're very, known here in Durham
Sure.
region. Like, what properties do you think, or what have you been seeing,
Or the
are can sell quick, are kind of lagging?
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like, what are the ones that within 30 days you're very confident when you meet
For
with your
sure, for
clients?
sure. I think that the anything in the lower price segments and first time home buyer entry level style homes, I think those will always sell relatively well.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in good product will always move quickly. So if you have your home and it's presented in the absolute best way, no
Hmm.
matter the market, your house will sell.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. I think that
So you don't price your properties, 80,000 or 100,000 under
you know what I
expecting,
think
and
that there's a
hold the
time.
big side here. Hey, sold 200,000 over
You know what?
asking, right?
I think
Like,
there's a time and a place for that type of marketing,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
depends on at least for me personally, when I'm having these conversations, it depends on the inventory levels.
hmm,
If there are 10 houses that we're competing with, and we've presented ours in the absolute best out of those 10, in my honest opinion, I think using that strategy will drive the traffic to our listing and hopefully outperform the rest, right?
true.
That's our job, right? When we represent sellers, we tell them we're after two things: to sell it for the most money and to sell it in the quickest amount of time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that being our main objective, sometimes, as realtors, we do use tactics like that. But I do think that, underpricing it, a crazy amount below is just,
yeah.
you're looking at $1 million house, it's listed at 599.
Yeah,
Of
I
course,
just like seeing the
everyone's gonna
signs
get
like
it,
sold
right?
400,000
So
over asking. You're like, come on,
yeah,
man. Like,
those ones are a little drastic. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think we quite do that
yeah,
much,
yeah,
but it is a tactic that is used, and I honestly think we're going to start seeing that come back
yeah,
in 2024 because there's kind of that more demand coming, more people are kind of in the marketplace.
hmm,
So yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, we get some good news from the Bank of Canada.
yeah.
We have an announcement coming up this month. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
the 24th. Honestly, inflation, we did have a little spike in December. November was great. We've been on a downward trend, but the
Right.
Bank of Canada, we want to see around 2.5 to
Three.
3%.
Yeah.
Ideally, we want 2%, but as long as we're within that range and coming down,
Right.
I'm very confident that we will start seeing reductions. Because, like I said previously, those increases were unheard of. No one could ever even expect
Yeah.
that. You should see what the banks,
Yeah.
prepared us for and was
Right.
expectation. They're all, just throw that out right away.
Right.
But
So you're thinking it's
my expectation is we're near the peak.
okay.
I can't say because anything could always possibly happen. There could be a
Yeah.
war. There could be COVID 3.5,
Oh
whatever
gosh,
it
yeah.
is, right? Yeah, knock on wood for that. But honestly, my expectation is roughly about quarter three, quarter four of 2024, we should start seeing some cuts, maybe even as soon as March. I mean, are these cuts
Wow, March.
maybe are these cuts going to be
Yeah.
1%? No.
No,
Will
no,
it be a
no.
quarter percent? Maybe
Right.
stay stagnant. Maybe another,
0.25.
yeah,
Yeah.
0.25, whatever.
Maybe a half at best.
Yeah, but
Okay.
like I think 2025 is going to be that year. And honestly, I've seen that
Really?
I've seen that with my clients too. Everyone, like I said, Canadians love the 5-year fixed. It's
Okay.
just what our parents used to do. It's
Hmm.
just brings comfort to a nice Canadian home. But honestly,
Right, right.
3-year fixes have been
More
great.
popular.
Yeah, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and I even have clients right now taking a variable. Um,
Okay, that was my next question.
yeah,
If you've seen that happen yet.
yeah, quite a bit. And we are seeing some great discounts. And they do understand like a variable is a great product, right? I
Right.
always like to explain it. It's like it's not for everybody. If
Right.
you're the type of person that cannot sleep at night, knowing that your payment could possibly go up an extra $100,
Your
during this
risk appetite.
announcement,
Yeah.
yeah, you need
Okay.
to be risk adverse for this, right?
Right.
And as well as like I always prep my clients, it's great to obviously not max out your purchase price when you're doing a
Right.
variable. Banks understand you are
Just because your affordability
just
could.
because your
Yeah.
affordability could go up, but
Right.
it could
Right. Right.
also go down, right?
Right.
So like, you have to understand like banks aren't taking the risk. You are taking the risk. And that's why it's
Right.
called a variable product,
Hmm.
right? And as well as when I explain to my clients, when it's always great to not be house poor, quote unquote.
Of course. Yeah. Totally.
You don't want to max out your purchase price
Right.
because you want that little bit of wiggle room in case, especially if you're on a variable
Yeah.
for unexpected costs, health
Yeah.
issues, job changes. But with variable, in case your price goes up. And as well as variable is always a long-term game. So
Right.
a 5-year variable, like I like to use expressions like it's like football, right? You could
Right.
be getting absolutely. I'm not a big football fan, but you could actually be getting slaughtered first quarter,
Yeah.
second quarter. It doesn't matter. It's all about what happens on the fifth quarter, right?
Right.
But obviously football has 4 quarters. But
Right.
we're
Right.
talking about a 5-year variable here.
Yeah.
I don't watch sports, but anyways, so like they have to be ready for some very very horrible quarters, right? Some years could be horrible, some years could be great. Obviously, what has happened over the last 2-3 years has given variable a horrible name because it's that it just got skunked, right? You just got
But
slaughtered.
historically speaking,
Yep,
variable has been the better option in
definitely.
past years.
Yeah. I want to say
Okay.
like 80% of the time, variables typically
Right.
do
Right.
come on top.
Yeah.
And to be transparent, my renewal's coming up in April, and I'm thinking about taking a variable or another 1 year or 2 year fixed, right?
Right. Right.
My situation is different because I'm planning
Of
a
course.
refinance and paying out some
Right.
debt and starting to get ready to purchase a rental, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So like
So everyone, this
everyone
is
is
not
different.
cookie cutter advice.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
would be tailored
yeah,
to
and like
everyone.
just
Definitely.
because one person's taking a variable doesn't mean you should take a variable,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Can you work overtime? Do you get quarterly bonuses?
Right, right.
What's good about the variable too is you only pay 3 months interest, so it's a very flexible product.
Okay.
And if things do
When
get
you break.
when you break it.
Break the
Yeah,
mortgage,
if you're
okay.
refinancing or selling your home, etc.
Right, right, right. So you have more flexibility
more
if you're going to like
flexibility.
move in the next couple of years or things like
Penalties
that.
are
Right.
typically cheaper.
Right.
And then as well as you can lock into a fix depending on your lender, right? So if you go 1 year
Throughout the term?
throughout the term, right? So if
Okay.
you're in like a 1 year or 2 year and it gets absolutely crazy, you can lock into like a 3-year fix for the remaining, right? You can't shorten the term
Gotcha,
because you can't be like, no, I'm on a 5-year, I want a 1 year. That doesn't work like that.
Okay, so
But
you have to take whatever's remaining in the current existing mortgage.
correct. Or you can
Okay.
extend it, all depending on what lender, what product you're in. That's why I feel what happened during these crazy times is people weren't actually prepped properly for a variable, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But anyways, I think it's a great product, just depending on your situation, of
Yeah.
course.
I'm personally in a variable too. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel
See,
your pain.
yeah, you know, right?
One thing that I want to talk about too was payment shock. I know that I don't know the exact stat. I don't know. Maybe you do roughly, but they said there's a lot of mortgages that are going to be coming renewed in 24
Yep.
and 25 that are going to be experiencing a huge payment shock. What do you think that looks like?
Honestly, payment shock. People think, you lock into like I don't know a 1.6 or something like that, and it jumps up to whatever 6%. Let's
Right.
use easy numbers. It's 1.5, and it goes up to 4.5. I'm paying essentially double what I'm paying right now, right? Almost triple, right? 1.5
Right.
to 4.5. Regardless, that's not how it works, right? Because you still have amortization. You can still extend the amortization to reduce the payments.
So you mean like if someone took a 30-year, for example,
Yep.
and let's say it was a 5-year
three
term,
3 year, 4
they're at
years in.
25,
Yeah, we do a refinance.
they can renew and stretch it back to 30. Is that what you mean?
No. So
Oh.
there's specific lenders that'll do like
Okay.
a collateral charge, right?
Okay.
So a collateral charge mortgage, we're getting a little more, intricate. We have a standard charge and a collateral charge mortgage. There's lenders that if you renew with them and you have a collateral charge mortgage, let's say you're with TD, they do collateral charge, right?
I've heard this actually.
So with this specific lender, you can actually extend the amortization back to 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? 30, you can't do that. Unfortunately, you'd have to do a refinance, but this is just for a transfer. So they're actually willing to work with you, and like this lender is almost like one of like a unicorn, right?
Right, right.
They're kind of setting the bar with this to help people with this payment shock. But like I said, if you're 1.5 and you're going up to 4.5, you can't expect to have your payment, triple or double of what you have right
You
now.
can or cannot?
Cannot. No,
Okay.
no, it doesn't.
Because
It
I
doesn't
think
work like
that's
that.
the
That's the
sentiment.
mentality.
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
someone's like, hey, Brandon, my mortgage payment is 2,500, but I
Yeah.
know that the rate is almost doubled.
You're not paying
I'm
five
expect
grand. You're
right.
not. It doesn't work like that,
So
right?
that I think that's what the mentality is, and
Yeah.
people are like, well, I won't be able to afford that.
Yeah, because they forget
So
the amortization, right? Like,
right,
right, it's
right,
spread
right,
over
right.
X amount of
Okay,
years.
okay.
Typically, it's around maybe 20 to 30%, 40%, depending on the
Like up
amortization. Up.
in terms of
Yeah,
interest. Okay,
yeah,
I
but
see.
it's
I
not
see.
200%. Like
Yeah.
you're not paying double, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
then the economy would absolutely collapse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, because I know there's a lot of people that naturally assume that,
Yeah,
right? So I guess reaching out to your mortgage broker, to your lender, to your bank, and
yeah.
having that conversation. And you said you recommend this like at least 6 months,
6 months, yes.
prior to maturity of the home.
Correct, correct.
Okay,
You want
okay.
to, identify any red flags. Like I see, clients' files and credit reports all the time, and you'll be surprised. And hey, don't check my credit. It's a great credit score, or whatever. Like, sure, I believe you, but you don't know if there's fraud on there.
Right.
You
Then there's
don't know.
something they don't know
Yeah,
about,
yeah, and
right?
like financial institutions are
Mm-hmm.
infamous because who are you dealing with behind the teller, right? I've had clients where they've actually had two loans for a car registered, and they only have one vehicle, but they just double charged it. Next thing you know, two
So it
years.
shows on the report twice.
Sure shows on the report
Oh
twice. So
man.
2 years, like you have all these R9s, the credit score is absolutely
Oh,
horrible. But it's a simple,
sounds like a headache.
yeah, call Equifax,
Right,
call
right.
your financial institution, get a nice little letterhead. It gets wrapped up quickly. But
Oh, it does.
yeah, yeah, it
Okay.
gets because
Okay.
there's
But
explanation
these are
there.
these are the things that we're looking for in preparation
Of
of.
course, right?
Okay.
Is there
Okay.
fraud? Is there identity theft?
Right,
Is there
right.
anything missed? Did they
Mm-hmm.
forget to close a loan? As well as like you want to properly prepare your next. Like it's a big thing. Like people think, oh, it's a renewal. It's just a rate. It's not always just the rate, right? This is a huge investment, especially if
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot of equity. So like when you meet with like your financial planner, and you're going over all your investments, like you
Mm-hmm.
are planning. So
Of course.
you should be doing
Yeah.
that with your mortgage as well, right? Are you going to do a high risk or a low
It's
risk?
funny you say it that way because we do something similar as well where we kind of like do like a little bit of a real estate checkup, if you will, right?
Yeah,
Just like you see your doctor, your
for sure.
accountant, whatever.
Like a
But yeah,
holistic kind of.
yeah, kind of
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
like the property that you have, the properties that you own, if they have a rental portfolio, and kind of look at like what are the values, where have they gone, what is your objective? When you first bought it, maybe you were after cash flow, and now you're looking more for appreciation. You have kids now, and you're looking for generational
yeah.
type of wealth, that kind of thing. So as those things change, we tailor our service and like what our clients looking to do the exact same way,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's great. That's a
Because
great service.
sometimes I feel like people don't know what their properties are worth and what the opportunities are
Yeah,
with that value changing and
definitely. Like
mortgage pay down going down,
yeah,
right?
and like a refinance. A lot of people don't understand what a
Yeah.
refinance is. And refinance is like such a powerful tool that where you can access equity, you can pay out some debt, you can give your grandchild a
Down
deposit for a
payment,
home
yeah.
or a down payment for a home. Like you have so much flexibility with all this equity. And like I said, it's not just about the rate. Like you want
Yeah.
to think about the term, and of
Or the
course.
opportunity cost of what you plan to do with that
Exactly,
knowledge,
right?
right?
Like, hey, you
Yeah.
have one kid and you got a two bedroom, right? Like,
Hmm.
are you going to be having another kid in the next 3 4 years,
Hmm.
right? So, are you putting your kid through college? Like, maybe we should refinance, especially if you're in a 5 year or
Hmm.
whatever it is. Maybe you want to upsize soon. Let's take that equity out and give some money to your kids so they can get ahead of the game
Right.
and put a down payment down. Or, like I said, if you have one kid and you have a two bedroom, maybe you're having a kid in the next 3 years. So, is a
Right.
5 year fix proper for you? No,
Yeah.
because if you're going to be breaking that mortgage,
Yeah.
your kid needs a room eventually.
I've
So,
seen that. I've seen that quite a bit, where the parents are kind of helping
yeah,
their
I
kids get
it's
into
funny
the
because I
market
like
that way,
it's
right?
yeah, I call it a live-in inheritance.
Live in inheritance.
Live in
So
inheritance.
that's they're living in their inheritance. They're
Ex-
getting the money early. They're buying a
yeah,
property.
yeah, right.
Okay,
So
that
like
makes
I
sense.
have
Yeah.
parents and grandparents where like typically you pass away, you're given an inheritance, you sell your home,
Right.
etc. So it all gets to be like now it's like it's harder for borrowers to purchase a home. So I have clients that are refinancing, especially the elderly. They'll take a reverse mortgage, and I mean we can talk about reverse mortgage all the time because it's gotten such a bad rep by like chip mortgages, but that's the states. But like I said, I don't want to talk too much about that. But they're taking out equity from the property, giving it to their parent, giving it to their grandkids,
Right.
and actually able to see
Bank of
their
mom and dad.
yeah the bank of
Yeah.
mom and dad. But the grandparents actually get to see what
Oh,
all
you're
their
seeing grandparents do
grandparents,
this.
yeah, they're taking
Oh,
all
I
their
see.
hard-earned
Okay.
money versus like getting divvied up when they pass away. They're
Right,
actually
right, right.
watching their grandkids purchase homes and get to go to their homes with them. Like how that's amazing,
Right, right, right.
right?
Okay, I
So
see.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like I think now in this environment, you need to work with a professional. someone who's experienced and knows all these strategies. When you go to the bank, or if you're not
Just
working.
like knowing what the options are.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
I especially we were talking about B lenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people love to say no, 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 or I can't do this, and they
Right.
just give up. Hey, I went to the Green Machine, and they said I couldn't do this.
Right.
Um, but in reality, there's like when you work with an agent or a broker, we have so many lenders that identify this one puzzle piece, I like to call
Right.
it, and they have the full
Yeah.
puzzle that where that puzzle piece will
It's
fit.
almost like a fulfilling feeling when you're working on
I
a
love it.
deal
I
where it's
love it.
like,
Yeah,
this doesn't fit the criteria, but
yeah,
like, we're gonna try to get the exception. We're gonna try and talk to this
yeah,
person.
yeah.
We're gonna raise this
You're like
concern to,
you have
yeah,
solutions, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
why I like this industry so much, especially the mortgage side. And I'm sure you see it a lot too,
Hmm.
because what crazy changes we've seen in 2023, right? Like,
Huge, yeah,
yeah, like what's happened with Treb and all that kind of stuff as
yeah,
well. And we
yeah.
could talk about that, but it's like it keeps you on your toes. You're
Hmm.
always learning, and
Everything's changing.
everything's
Yeah,
changing, right? So
yeah,
you
yeah,
never just hit a bar and you're like, oh, I've done the same repetitive thing every day, right?
yeah,
Every day
yeah.
is new, every conversation is new, and every
Everyone's situation's different.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And especially with Trev, like I don't know if you can comment on that
yeah,
with the changes they made. Like, do you
yeah. Big
find
changes.
do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
find these buyers are actually coming up being like, I want to represent myself? Is it beneficial when you have a listing and your sellers see somebody
Excuse
represent
me.
themselves?
I
Like,
personally don't have experience with a self-represented party as yet.
yeah, it's
Maybe
fairly new,
it's
right?
fairly new.
December, I
It rolled
think.
out December
Yeah,
1st. I think some of the public is still getting their head around what that means and how that works.
true.
But no, I haven't had anyone approach me, to as a self-represented party as yet. But I have had colleagues who said that that has happened for them, and
Yeah,
kind of going through the process and whatnot. It's a little bit interesting, but I feel for the most part, for the majority of people that I've spoken to, clients or potential clients or
yeah,
clients to be, there once we give them that that RICO guide. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like 13 pages or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Kind of outlines what you can,
I've
what you
seen your
can't
reels.
do.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think with that, when you're sharing that with someone, you're going over like what we provide, what we don't provide, and if you
Hmm.
want to be self-represented. I feel like most times you present that to someone, they're like, yeah, no, I don't want that. Like, I want
Yeah.
you to represent me, right?
Mhm.
So
Well, especially when you're working with
yeah,
a buyer agent, like it's free to work with a buyer agent, just like it's
that's right.
free typically 99%
Yeah.
of the time to work with a mortgage agent, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think that a good real estate agent and a good mortgage broker, especially if you're not, you're not directly paying them for their services, they're paid on other ways.
Yeah,
I think that it's an absolute no-brainer. But again,
definitely.
there's going to be people out there who feel differently, that feel, hey, I could do what
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
do, and
yeah.
I'll get the
Go
best
on Reddit.
deal.
You'll see all of that,
There
right?
you go.
Like,
There you
yeah, yeah,
go.
definitely.
Speaking of Reddit, didn't you just acquire some business from
Yeah,
them? So
yeah.
tell us about that.
Okay, so I mean Reddit. If anybody is on Reddit, that is probably one of the most craziest places to get trolled.
Negative environment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
find me on Reddit, Mr. Mortgage, come give me a shout out. But yeah, I got so many downvotes. But I mean Reddit, we have a thread there. We're actually just providing free information. Anybody can hop on there. It's called Mortgages Canada. And
Right.
honestly, I have my first deal closing from there, and I've spent a lot of time just doom scrolling and just saying, hey,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
wrong, just to correct people because there's so much information online.
Misinformation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, no, that's not how it works, right? Like, people always say, oh, you don't need a realtor, you can do it yourself, or you don't
Sure.
need a mortgage agent, you guys don't provide any service other than a rate. But when you actually start working with a mortgage agent and you try to figure it out yourself, and
You quickly see the
you
value.
see the comparison,
Yeah,
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 like
yeah.
that's my job. I
Totally.
negotiate for you, right? But yeah, like I actually had my first deal closing from Reddit, and
No, that's good, man.
we're going to be getting some exceptions where the bank actually did tell them no, and they were kind of lost, hated where they lived,
Hmm.
and just wanted to move as fast as possible. And
I guess that's why you see those advertisements for mortgages on like bus shelters and stuff. It's like the bank said no, we said yes.
yeah,
Call us,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
there are other options, and I think
Definitely,
if you
definitely.
don't know, you can't make an informed decision that way,
Especially for
right?
business owners, man. Like we have like your business owner, our business owner. There's
Hmm.
so many great products there where we don't have to give all of our taxes and declare it in our income, right?
Hmm.
As a business owner, you're working with an accountant. Your accountant's job is to write off as many expenses to be beneficial and work its way around the tax code. Obviously,
Sure.
as me as a mortgage agent, I'm trying to take that income and improve you for as much as possible. So like
For the mortgage
we
side,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
clash a little bit,
yeah.
right?
Right, right.
But it's like how much are you
So are
approving?
you noticing lenders are more flexible when it comes
On
to
the B
self
side,
on the B side?
yeah,
Okay.
and on
Okay.
the A side too, depending on the lender. But there's a lot of products like basically designed to be like tell your accountant to write off as many expenses as possible
Right.
because we don't care what your T1 general looks like. I want 12 months bank statements and reasonable expenses. So your accountant,
Okay.
at the end of the year is going to be like, you got to spend 80 grand or you're going to be giving the government 40.
Right,
So
right.
it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a new truck, right? But
Hmm.
for me, when I'm actually approving these business for self owners,
Hmm.
I don't take that is an unreasonable expense. Nobody
Right.
buys a $40,000 truck every single year,
Right,
right?
of
That was
course.
typically to reduce
I
their income
see.
tax,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
For me, I just go through bank statements and I only look at deposits and reasonable expenses. So that $40,000, like I mean, I've inflated clients' income. What they would claim on their T1 would be like 50. I bumped them up to like 90, over 100 sometimes.
Hmm.
So you have to kind of do the math, right? Like if you were in, like, typically on the A side with traditional lending, I have to actually take a 2 year average of your T1 general. So you would have to claim 100 grand for 2 years versus paying a 1% fee and a higher interest rate. I want to say
Right,
90% of the time it always works beneficial for the
right.
borrower
It's
because
just the stigma, man.
it's just the
That's
stigma. Oh,
associated
I
with
got
it.
to
Yeah,
pay a
yeah.
fee, but hey, if you don't
Yeah,
do it
yeah.
this way, you're paying
But
a fee and
it's
you're
good
giving
that
it to the
you break it
government.
down that way because I
Yeah,
feel like that would give people the holistic view to be like, hey, you're
yeah,
going to be spending here, yes, but you're going to be saving there, and
yeah.
that's also beneficial to you, right? Instead of
Definitely,
just thinking
definitely.
of it as a fee, an
and
extra
and like
cost.
that's why you want to work with someone who's qualified and experienced because like you want that holistic. You want to be talking to the accountant. You want to be ready. Like right now,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
January, March.
Time to have those
March,
conversations,
yeah,
right?
then that's
Yeah,
the conversation I'm having, right?
right.
Like I'm reaching out to people. Hey, like I know your renewals in 2 to 3 years, but are you preparing for that? Because
Yeah.
this year is very crucial to where we're going to place your product.
Oh, I
Where
see.
where we're
Yeah,
going to
because what
place
they
your mortgage.
claim, what they
Yeah,
do. Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
exactly? Because typically it's 2 years, right?
That's right.
So
2 year average, right?
yeah, let's say you made 100 grand this year, you claim 20, like that is not good.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's gonna be
right?
tough for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
someone reading that's like you're going bankrupt soon. Like, why $80,000? That's unreal,
yeah. That's a
right?
loss. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, like, I want to ask you this because I know, like, we've been working together for quite a bit now, and
Sure.
what's some good client stories that you've had, and
Oh man, we've had some very interesting client success stories
yeah,
as of lately. One of them more recently that we both worked on actually. We had clients they were looking to make a move, and I showed them a few properties. We found one that they really liked. We
hmm,
ended up getting that for an amazing price, and it was structured very very creatively. Where typically whenever you buy a property, your
hmm.
deposit, which is a portion of your down payment
Oh yeah, yeah, I
is
remember this one.
obviously
Yeah,
yeah
yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah,
is obviously due within 24 hours.
for
So for
sure.
example, if you submit an offer on Monday and the seller's like, great, we're accepting your offer,
Hmm.
typically the following day, the Tuesday, you would bring that deposit to them. Now we had a bit of a creative method because those funds weren't readily available for my clients
Correct.
within that one day. We actually were able to get 5 business days to provide the deposit. And I
Insane.
know that probably doesn't sound like a
Insane.
lot from 1 to 5, but
Yeah.
anyone who knows Toronto real estate knows that that's kind of unheard
Yep.
of. Keep in mind, this specific offer also had conditions in it, right?
Yep.
Financing that you were working on had home inspection.
Hmm.
So during that period of time, we basically bought a property conditional and didn't give a deposit for
Yep.
nearly
I,
a
I
week,
remember getting that
right?
call. I was out for dinner with some friends. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
no problem. Let's
I
go.
everyone
Here's
I
some
talked to about
ideas.
it, they're like, Brandon, that's crazy. There's no
Yeah.
one's gonna go for that.
Yeah.
But the market we're in, you sometimes you got to get creative.
Yeah.
Long story short, obviously you got the mortgage approved, the home inspection went through, and we got the deposit by the end of the week.
Yeah.
So that was a win for my clients.
Hmm. Yeah, they
Sometimes
were
when
very happy. Very
yeah,
happy.
exactly. And then I know on that same file you had gotten them some crazy rate exceptions.
Yeah.
Getting that down nearly what 1% almost
Yeah,
from
I put
from
in
the beginning.
four rate exceptions. And yeah, it was roughly about 1.2 from the total from when we first started. So it was great. So
1.2% less than what
less,
you
yeah,
previously
yeah, yeah.
quoted
So
on.
I think like obviously you did your thing. You
Yep.
got their house over asking. You got their new property under
Yeah,
asking,
yeah, yeah.
unreal. And then we had this downward trend on rates, on fixed rates specifically.
Yeah.
So I think they just had they just bought at the right time.
Yeah.
And obviously we're working with the right people.
Right.
But yeah, I was very happy.
I
Happy
think
for them, of course.
I'm glad you talked about the like client stories because I think with all of the negative things going on in the media, around the market, the economy and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I think people lose sight
Armageddon.
of. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I think people lose sight of that there is a lot of positive, there's a lot of
for sure.
success stories, there's still a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
It just depends on who you are and where you are and what
Yeah.
you're planning to do,
And
right?
and within your circle too, right?
Exactly.
Like I've had quite a
Exactly.
few first time home buyers buy in that crazy market,
Right.
where everyone's like, it's gonna pop, and
Hmm.
they're happy, they're not renting, their
Yeah.
money's working for them. So like you said,
Exactly.
there is good success stories, and you always got.
Totally.
I consider
Totally.
myself toxically positive,
Yeah,
so like
yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of keep all the negative.
Optimistic.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
I keep
Me
the
too.
negative away, right?
Negative.
Yeah,
Chill
yeah.
out.
No one's got time for that.
One other one that I wanted to talk about too is a really crazy one. So, there was a property, and this is a custom built property.
Hmm.
They really liked it. It's been on the market for quite some time. The neighbor's property, which is built by the same builder, was actually listed for, or sorry, I think it was sold for around 2 point. It was either 2.1 or 2.3 million.
Yeah.
At near the peak of the market. And at that time, that seemed to be the price that was in line with where the market was, right? We ended up locking up the house beside them, which is nearly identical, for I think it was like 1.6
Yeah. Yeah.
million with a
It's a big purchase
financing.
price. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is the kicker, though. We
Yeah.
got a financing condition that was for 5 days. You know, the standard 5 days.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, within those 5 days, it was a bit of a creative file where there was a lot of exceptions. There was a very niche program that the lender was using to qualify these people. And we don't see that too often. But with that being said, the 5 business days was not enough.
Yeah.
They basically had told them that we needed an extension. When I spoke to the broker, they were saying like we would need almost a month to get this deal.
Insane.
You know, right? So immediately, my clients.
Yeah, for me, I'm just like, a month.
That's a no.
What?
Like
Yeah,
the deal's
yeah,
dead.
yeah.
Like that, it's
For
over
sure.
from there. Long story short, we actually got a full month
Insane.
extension
Insane.
on a financing
That's
condition.
crazy. That is like
In
Christmas
this
to a
market.
broker.
And
Yeah.
keep in mind, like the again, I'm not saying the house is worth 2.3 today, but just to know that at the peak it had sold around that, and we were going
Yeah,
to get it
30
for around
days.
1.6 and change
Yeah.
with a 30-day financing condition
What can happen
on
in
this
30
custom
days?
built home that was
Crazy.
beautiful, by the
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
right? So I think what people are losing sight of is that there is a lot of opportunity. Don't be fooled by the list price. Get out there, give it a shot, try, and you'd be surprised on where that takes you.
Yeah.
Are you kind of seeing the same thing here?
No.
Like below the list price on some properties?
Yeah, yeah, like especially like for appraisals too. Like there was a
Yeah.
a portion there where I'm just like, oh, like I'm I work with multiple realtors as well. Just like
Of course.
we have to expand our network, but like I see these prices come in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like did he do his due diligence,
Right.
right? Did he or she do
Meaning
due
it's too high?
It could be too high or too low.
Or too-
All I
okay,
think
I
about
see.
is the appraisal. I'm like, did they
Right,
do the
right, right.
diligence to check the comps properly,
right,
right? Because
yeah.
that appraisal is very, very important, especially if it's not insured, if it's a conventional, right?
I
'Cause
see.
lenders only lend
80%,
80%,
yeah,
right? So
okay.
especially if you have a very, very tight budget and that appraisal, like let's say, you're purchasing a home, say 500 grand,
Yeah.
and it comes back at 475. So a lender,
25 difference.
right? $25,000
Yeah.
difference. A lender will only lend on the lesser of the value, either
Okay.
the appraisal or the purchase price. So if the appraisal comes
Right.
back higher, 510, perfect. You're moving in this home and you
Yeah.
got $10,000 equity. You just got a deal, quote unquote.
Mhm.
But if it comes back less, $25,000 less, you are actually going to have to front the money, an extra $25,000 to cover the difference.
Plus, yeah, to
Right?
close the gap. Okay.
To close the gap,
I
right?
see.
So if you're not working with the right people and somebody puts you in this position, and you don't have those funds and you went in firm, that is just absolutely.
So let me
it's
ask you,
terrifying.
when a buyer submits an offer, then they have the 5-day financing condition.
Oh, I'm a lawyer, man. I'm like, get it in writing. I'm saying put that 5-day condition of financing.
No,
I
no.
always
My question was
recommend it.
more around like, are appraisals being conducted within those 5 days?
Oh,
to
they
ensure
should be.
that?
They should be. How I kind of operate my business is like I have those 5-day condition of financing, and I am prepping. I already have all the documents prior to that. The whole
Okay.
file is
The
underwritten.
reason I asked that is because on a lot of properties, I'm
Yeah.
seeing the appraisal being done way further back, like
Yeah.
way after 5 days. Like
Yeah, and
sometimes like right before closing.
Yeah, and I mean that's how you can structure it as well,
Mm-hmm.
because it always depends on when's the closing. Is it a 30-day closing?
60-day or 30
Yeah,
day.
is it 90 days? Is it
Right,
100
right.
days? So if that appraisal comes back lower, and you're confident that your clients, if it does come back lower and your clients do have the extra funds to cover the difference, then you have a little more flexibility. But if it's very tight, you want to know right away because those conditions of financing is there to protect you, right? So that appraisal should be ordered right away. All those, you should have the commitment back, and you should be satisfying every single condition on that commitment as fast as possible, or at least the ones that you're worried about. Let's say if you're getting an exception for an income, or maybe the down payment's a little tricky because it came from overseas or an inheritance. It's not your
Yeah.
typical. Yeah, I have
It's
100
just
grand in my savings
in
for
my
the last
Tangerine
5
account, yeah.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So like as a good agent, you should be identifying those. Prepping the clients as well. Even if all the conditions aren't met, you're saying, "Hey, I feel comfortable because as long as you don't quit your job, we're good to go,
Yeah.
right? As long as you don't put in $80,000 cash tomorrow, we're good to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the appraisals should be done within those 5 days. If it is a short close, or if there's any expectations of it could be come in lower, right?
Have you seen like more recently instances with lower appraisals, or they're pretty much?
I would say over the last 6 months, it's kind of balanced out a little bit.
Okay, I feel the same too.
Yeah.
No
And
issues there.
Yeah, I had a closing. What was it? March, April last year, where an appraisal
There
actually
was an
came.
issue?
No, the
Oh.
appraisal actually came back more. By the time they moved in, they made $10,000, right? I
Right,
was like,
right.
that's great, right? Like,
Yeah.
what a better feeling. You're purchasing a home and you already have an extra $10,000 in equity, right?
Right, right.
I haven't seen too many low appraisals.
In my experience, it seems like appraisals are always extremely conservative, no matter what. Like
Yeah.
even if you got a great deal on it, and you kind of the numbers show that it's worth more, it always kind of comes back at value. Do you kind of see that? I always find that funny.
Well, I mean, it depends on the lender because
Okay.
some lenders, like typically with like the banks and stuff, they have their approved appraisals. I actually have to go through
So
like
these are third parties. They're not
yeah, I
working
have to go
for
through yeah
Scotia TD
yeah
account.
like so especially for conventional loans, right? Like so
I see.
sometimes they'll do like an internal appraisal where they're like,
Right.
okay, this makes sense. We'll do this no problem. We don't need
Right,
to
right,
do a
right.
full
Like an
appraisal.
internal thing, they're just looking on the
Yeah, it's
computer.
called like AVM, right? Costs you
Okay.
$100, right? So they do
Okay.
their comparables and it's
Right.
all automated. But if they want a full appraisal, a
Then they
third
order
party has to get it hired to do the appraisal, right?
just to keep it like unbiased or something. It's
For
like,
sure.
hey, it's a
But
third
as an
party.
agent, right, like with specific lenders, I actually have the ability to go on the approved appraisal list to find a great appraisal company for that. Versus
Oh, I see.
some lenders you have to use a third party. So
Right.
you put it in, hey, I need an appraisal for this property. They
Yeah.
go through all the approved where I don't have any control, right?
Gotcha.
So like there's that flexibility there as well as in, you build your relationships, you work with the right people, and maybe their appraisal company doesn't know what he's doing, and then I can combat, I can contact you, hey, pull me up some
Some
comparables.
comps, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he missed this.
We've had to do that a few times actually.
Yeah. Like, look at this comparable, right? He missed this, right? And
Mhm.
who knows? Is the appraiser that's his first day on the job, or is he a vet? So like, there's some
Yeah.
flexibility there as well, right?
Totally.
And that's why it's not always about the rates. Like, there's so many more moving parts of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think as a consumer though, I can understand why the rate is like top of mind.
It's just
That's like the
built-
only thing it's associated
just
with.
built
When they
into
think mortgage broker, they think interest rate.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
what is the rate? If the
For
rate's
sure.
not attractive, we're not interested. But there's a lot of things
Yeah.
other than
Like if you
that
want the
into
lowest
it.
rate, I can get you the lowest rate, but I
Yeah.
mean it's gonna be with like some credit union you never heard of. Good luck getting them on the phone.
2 employees.
Yeah, 2 employees. You're gonna be traveling 20 minutes to do
Yeah.
anything, and high fees, bona fide sale clauses where like a bona fide sale clause. There's so much fine print in these low rate basic mortgages,
Like
right?
the what's the one I see all the time like on the Facebook ad? It's like
I don't want to name
three
names.
points,
Yeah.
99 I think
6
it's like
months.
3.99 or something like
Yeah,
that.
for 6 months. There's a
Or is it 4.9?
4.99 for
It's something that's
for
extremely
1 year.
attractive,
For
but like
1 year.
I actually clicked through to read it. One of them was actually only 6 months,
Yeah.
and I think there was something
I
in
know the
there.
lender. I'm not gonna say.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
but there's
it
the-
said that you must renew with them, right?
Exactly.
That was the caveat,
or
right?
there's fees.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? So
I
like
didn't go
there's
that
one
far.
out there that's like, 4.99 for 1 year, great rate. But
Mhm.
if you don't renew with them, you're paying a 1.5% renewal fee on the mortgage amount. So it's basically like we're giving you this now, but we're gonna get the money later.
So you
if
got to
don't
read
go
those
with-
terms and conditions.
Yeah, and expect a lot higher renewal than what's on the market, right? Because that's how they make their money back.
Totally.
And I wanted to mention too, because I know we did a first time home buyer seminar.
Yes, you beat me to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
you're
was
gonna do
good.
that. So like, I think that's just like a great experience, and I feel like education is really big in this kind of market. I mean,
Totally.
whoever's listening to this is gonna be like, I didn't know this and this and this, right? So
For sure.
I wanted to just get your opinion on how did you actually like being in person because
Yeah, I thought it
COVID,
was-
everybody was
I
virtual.
thought it was cool. I
Yeah.
did see like previously a lot of other realtors and mortgage agents were kind of doing these things virtually.
Yeah.
For quite a while.
Webinars.
And I'll be honest, this was that your first time doing it?
In that kind of setting, yes.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
my first time too.
Yeah.
Obviously a little nervous, but I think it went extremely well. The turnout was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad, but I think we delivered some good information. It
For
felt
sure.
good to get in front of people and answer those questions
Yeah.
because I think being in the business that we're in, we often lose sight of because we know well, not so much like you know everything, but
Yeah.
because we know
Always
what
learning.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we know what we know, we kind of forget what type of questions consumers might have. So it was kind of
Yeah.
cool at the end to have like a Q&A and people ask questions because I'm thinking to myself, oh, I thought everyone knew that, right?
Yeah.
But they don't, right?
No.
If they're not in this industry, why would you know that information, right?
For sure.
So I think that was super cool. Obviously, we did actually convert from that, which
Yeah.
was really nice to see. We actually helped a really nice first time home buyer couple.
Yeah, came back from Canada, from Germany. They were
There
in
you go.
Germany for
That's right.
like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And they came back, and obviously being overseas, there it's completely different. I remember we
Yeah.
were talking about it. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like their
Yeah,
market and
yeah.
our market and their laws and our
Totally.
laws.
Oh, he was telling me the way it works in Germany. It's completely different.
Yeah. So it's
Completely
crazy, right? So to have somebody that can't come back here, ready to go, but obviously wanted the education, right? He found us, he came out, he liked what we were kind of presenting, and he reached out, and I was just, I think, how many homes did you? He was. I've never gotten one of the
Yeah. So
greatest
that was
reviews
an
there ever.
interesting one. So he actually, I think, inquired to see, I think, 2 or 3 properties, and in a certain area because I think they wanted to keep within the school district to have their kids go to the same school, which we see very often.
Yeah.
That's,
They're renting in the area, and they're like, I don't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like,
Makes
we don't
sense.
want to switch schools. We want the kids to stay at the same school. We're like, okay, no problem. We pulled up all the options. We sent it over to them. The buyer came back and said, "Hey, we want to see these two or three. I don't remember exactly." And they were okay options, but there was another two that I was like, you know what? I think these are also good. Let me just add them in there.
Yeah.
So we kind of showed them the first three. And when we were done, I said to him, "I'm like, hey, like, do you guys have some free time? I have two extra houses that we added to the list. Do you mind if we
Yeah,
take a
being
look?
proactive.
We're already in the area,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
can't
yeah.
say no, right?"
Yeah, of course.
So he's like, you know what? Yeah, let's take a look. So we showed it to them, and sure enough, ended up buying one of those extra two houses that we saw, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, when you're working with someone who's very experienced in the area, you kind of know what to expect in certain pockets or
Hmm.
certain houses or dealing with the same agents over and over, that kind of thing. So I think that kind of value add, maybe had he not chosen to see those properties and we only showed him the first three,
For
he might
sure.
have been interested, right?
Yeah.
So I think doing that was obviously beneficial to him. Today now he's already bought the house, closed on it, moved in. You did the mortgage.
Yeah.
So
There's some
that
interesting
was a
stuff
huge
on that
win.
side too. So
Yeah,
like,
totally.
of course, like he brought a lot of funds over from like Germany and stuff, right? So it was just like a great coincidence that the underwriter that I was dealing with actually spoke German. So like,
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
really?
so we actually
Interesting.
so we actually saved him quite a bit of money versus
Yeah.
like if you are bringing this kind of income, obviously I have to prove it within 90 days, all like sources or whatever, right?
Okay.
So that would be it had to be translated. You have to bring it to a translator.
Oh, the statements.
Yeah, the state because
Oh, I
they're in
see.
German, they're not in
Okay.
English, right? So yeah, they actually spoke German, and
Wow.
probably saved them, I don't know, maybe $400 or $500. They didn't have to get
Right.
everything translated, and
Yeah,
as well as
yeah.
time and stress
Oh,
involved.
yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, it was just like a weird.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah,
I
like
think you told me
I
that.
think everything kind of just worked very well. Like from the
Yeah.
transition from the first time home buyer, you showed him those homes.
Yeah. Hmm.
The mortgage went very smoothly, and of course, yeah, he's just very happy. Great review. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Realistic.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Awesome. And just to end it off, I know that one went extremely well. We
Yeah,
do have plans for 24 to do
definitely.
hopefully a number of seminars.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts on terms of what, like, are you thinking first time buyer,
yeah.
investor, kind of tap into a few of those different,
Definitely,
you
like
know,
first time home buyer, 100%. There's
always value there
there's
for sure.
always value there, and I think that there's gonna be a big uptick on first time home buyers. I always say
Mhm.
rent always goes up and never goes down.
Right.
So no matter what, your money is.
Unless it's COVID.
Yeah, let's just go for it, right? And I think there's going to be a lot of upsizers just because of
Yeah.
how the market is. Inflation's very expensive,
Yeah.
right? Like I feel like there's a lot of people. Maybe their their young kids are moving back in because they understand. Hey,
Right.
we need to
Save.
we need to save.
Okay.
So I think there's going to be people upsizing in that sense. I think there's going to be people that purchase 2019, have all that equity in their property from COVID. Rates are starting to come down, so like, hey, let's make a move, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they're just sick of the house because they were stuck in it for so long.
Yeah, yeah.
And definitely first-time real estate investors. Same
First
thing.
time real estate investors.
Yeah, first-time
Okay.
real estate investors. I'm still trying to think of a good acronym
Title.
for that. Yeah, something cool, right?
I know. I always say like first time home sellers because no one really talks about that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people that have bought a house but they've never sold a house, right? So that
Exactly.
experience to them is new, and
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't get enough topic or conversation about it.
And like
Um,
cause I was talking about, right? Like, a lot of people don't know what a refinance is, right? So like, there's so
Yeah.
many opportunity if you have equity in your property
Right.
to pull that equity out,
Uh-huh.
right? Purchase a rental or change. My favorite strategy is to turn that into a rental and purchase another owner occupied, right?
Right. So you're moving into your new primary,
Yeah.
and your existing primary is converted to a rental.
Correct. So you're basically, and like this is a little more intricate where you want the biggest mortgage possible on your rental property because it's essentially a business once it becomes a rental property. So you get
Okay,
to
I
write off
see.
expenses. The higher the mortgage, the
Right.
better because of the interest rate. You actually get to write off
Right.
the interest rate as well, right?
Okay.
And it actually allows the rental income allows you to help qualify for your next property, your owner occupied, right? So if you're getting approved for the same mortgage amount, right? It's best to split it up and put as much on your rental property and have a larger down payment on your owner occupied for the tax benefits, right?
So you're keeping the larger mortgage on the rental
Yes.
because of the benefits,
Correct.
and then your
Putting a
your
larger-
primary residence is going to be a smaller mortgage,
Correct.
which you probably prefer anyway. I imagine.
Correct.
right?
And there's like a lot of strategies out there, right? But that's one of my
That-
favorite, very easy.
That strategy to me was extremely popular when rates were low.
For
But
sure.
I feel like now that people have seen what leverage can do,
Mhm.
and sometimes over leverage,
Yeah.
I think that
The money's not free anymore.
yeah, it's kind of got
That's
a
it.
stigma with it, like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I
Yeah.
just want to pay down my current mortgage. I don't want any debt. I don't want to refinance and pull money out. I just want to keep paying down.
Yeah.
Have you kind of noticed that a little bit?
Honestly, it's just like I see both
depends.
sides. It depends
Okay,
on the
okay.
client. Some people are like,
Yeah.
yeah, they understand, right?
Right,
Like,
right,
wow,
right.
this is a lot of people don't even know it's possible. And then some
Right.
people have that, mentality is like, I just want to pay off my mortgage. So we'll put them in products with like higher prepayment privileges. Maybe they get, quarterly bonuses. They can double up their payments. A little more flexibility there. So
Hard to see that nowadays, doubling up payments.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
already pretty expensive.
But I mean, like, for salaried employees that have
A
like
bonus
quarterly
or
bonus, like you want to make
commission
sure you're
or
with a lender that you can take that bonus if you want to pay off your mortgage as fast as possible.
what is it usually, like 20% prepayment that you see?
I
Or
want
not
to
that
the
high?
standard's about 15-15.
15%
15-15.
per year.
Yeah, so you can double
Okay,
up
I
up
see.
to like increase payment up to 15 or 15% down payment.
Right.
Lump sum
One
payment.
shot, yeah.
One shot. But some lenders you're actually allowed to make multiple payments throughout the year. So you
Okay.
can do like quarterly
So
bonuses.
every mortgage will differ.
Up
Yeah.
to 15% though, right?
To
But
a
like
maximum.
yeah, so when I'm dealing with these clients, I always say like, how fast do you really want to pay off your mortgage? Because maybe we can go to this lender. Yes, it's a 2020 prepayment, but hypothetically, you could pay off your mortgage in 5 years. Do you have inheritance coming in? Are you selling a business, right? That's where the savings come in. You might be paying an extra 30-40 bucks a month, but you're going to be paying off your mortgage a lot faster versus, exceeding the prepayment. Your penalty is going to be
Right.
thousands of thousands of dollars, right?
Right.
So there's a lot to it that it's just the lowest rate. But
Gotcha.
getting back to what you're saying, definitely
Yeah.
first time home investors. I think that's
Okay.
I'm going to see an uptick on that.
Yeah.
And lastly, like my opinion is, I think a detached property
Right.
is, when we're all that, I consider myself fairly young. I got a little gray hairs here, but
Yeah.
I do think a detached property is going to be like a luxury. Like I mean, you see it, you see new developments. I think everything is like
Townhouse or
townhouses, row houses, right?
It's funny that you say that because I've been saying that for so long.
Yeah.
I think that typically, or at least growing up, like the end of the property ladder, so to speak, that most people are aiming for,
Yeah.
was the detached double garage, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and a little backyard,
Yeah.
or a decent backyard, right?
Mhm.
I feel like that has definitely shifted, and I think that there's going to be a lot more families that are a townhouse, and there's nothing wrong with a townhouse. Keep in mind, right?
No, not at all.
But I think that a lot of people have this conception in their mind that they're trying to get to that bigger detached home.
Yep.
But I do agree with you. I think townhomes are going to become instead of entry levels, they're going to be like, no, this is our family home, right? People
sure.
are going to be raising kids there, and
Mhm.
through all ages, right?
And like everybody's different, right? Like some people
Totally,
like
yeah.
the townhouses, they like being by
yeah,
neighbors.
yeah.
Some
Or
don't.
lower maintenance.
Yeah,
and,
some people
things like
want
that.
6-7 dogs and want a huge yard, right? Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
so many different things about specific borrowers and what their needs
Yeah,
are,
yeah,
right? And honestly, like what's going on right now, like there's just not enough houses. You can look up anywhere you want. That is a straight fact. They're bringing in so many new Canadians. The government
Yeah.
can't. We were building homes faster in 2008 than we are now. Like it's nuts,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And the government is looking for help from detached owners with large
Right.
properties, right? They have all these bills.
Oh,
coming.
in terms of like conversions.
Conversions, right? They have these bills.
garden suites.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
2
Garden
units,
suites.
3
They're
units.
taking double car garages and turning them into
I can't say I'm a fan of those.
self-contained units. Yeah, you go to Peterborough, you'll see them, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, that is and
That's where we are, right? Yeah.
yeah, and
things
that's where
at.
we are. The government is
Yeah.
asking for basically homeowners to become investors to dig them out of this housing crisis, right? They're passing now.
I feel like there needs to be more incentives
Yeah, me too.
for this to be attractive
Yep,
to people.
yep.
As someone who owns a
A
detached
little less
house,
risk.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
there needs to be something more in play. I don't know what it is, but I feel like it needs to be more incentivized to
Yeah.
encourage people to do that
For
if
sure.
that's what they're gunning for.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, there are great companies that have been built around this, where they come in and
like that's their focus.
they'll do the assessment. They have these pre-built garden suites. They'll pop
Oh,
it
I
on
heard
your
about
land.
that. The
Yeah,
pre-built
yeah.
ones, right?
They'll
Like they're pre-approved almost the layout.
the layout. Yeah, so it
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
down
yeah.
to
You come
the
in a
single
catalog
bed-
almost,
that-
right?
It is right.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
handle the digging, the hydro, the permits. It's like that white glove service where it's like,
Jeez.
do you have the money and do you have the land? And unfortunately, like I can't do it because I'm a part of Cloca. That's where
Right.
I live, right? So
Right.
then I can't put any self-contained units there. But they'll come in. They'll do all that for
But
you.
I'm curious on what the cost is to
Mhm.
do something like that, and obviously I understand it's going to vary, but generally speaking, I wonder what the average cost is to do that, because you have to look at, as as a property owner, it's like, how much are you investing and how much are you getting back
To return.
like, yeah, like how many years are we talking about, or
For
months
sure.
or years are we
Yeah.
talking about to break even on this
Mhm.
100 200.
And honestly, I wish I had a price to tell
right?
you, because I went to like the presentation. They held.
Okay, you were the one that told me this, I think.
Yeah, and they held off of how much it was, right? So like they wanted to look up first. They want to see if you can do it or your property. You need a specific amount of green space. You have to be in the right municipality, because
Yeah.
municipalities are all like approving it when they're ready to do it, I guess, right?
Right,
So like you see it in Toronto,
It's in
they're
stages,
doing
yeah.
alley homes, right? Like it's nuts.
Laneway,
La-
right?
sorry,
Yeah,
laneway
yeah,
homes.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the correction. But
Yeah.
it's like the government is just like, please help us because we need help, right?
Yeah,
So
it's totally true, man.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, it was nice chatting. I guess
Definitely.
we can wrap it up unless you have anything else.
Yeah, no, all I gotta say is, I'm looking forward to 2024. I think it's gonna be a great year.
Me too.
There's so many renewals coming up. I think it's like 250 billion in 2020,
Billion. Wow.
billion in 2024, about
And then more in 25, right?
350 billion in 2025. That's all those nice
Jeez. Yeah,
5 year
yeah.
fixed rates. So
Right,
I
right,
just want to
right.
let people know you do have options.
Okay.
And of course, have a great year.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, man.
Appreciate it.
Let's go.
You recorded that, right?